Aloha and welcome to Citing Sources using the Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association, APA 7th edition. I'm going to be giving you today the Cliff Note version of the 395-page book. Citing Sources in APA, American Psychological Association 7th edition, involves following specific guidelines for various types of sources. Here's a general guide on how to cite common types of sources in APA format. Terms and explanations. APA lead-in uses past tense. For example, the author stated, the author said, the researcher found. Then the explanation is in present tense. After the citation, the explanation, how the quoted or paraphrased evidence proves or supports the main idea, that is written in present tense. For example, this means, this shows, this reveals, this demonstrates, this proves, this suggests. In-text citations. An in-text citation is a reference within the body of a written work that acknowledges the source of the information used or referred to in the text. The purpose of the in-text citation is to provide brief and clear identification of the source material, allowing readers to locate the complete citation in the reference/references section. Paraphrased evidence is evidence from another source written inside your work in your own words and style. According to APA, paraphrasing is an effective writing style to summarize and synthesize information from one or more sources. In APA, it is not required to put a page number when paraphrasing. However, you may include one and/or your teacher or professor or university may require putting a page number in addition to the author and year to help readers locate the exact source. The page number is placed in parenthetical citation after the year. If the year is not in the narrative citation in the first example, Kohler 2016 noted the dangers of falsely balanced news coverage, page, period, 13, and parentheses, period. The author and page number are in the narrative. In the second example, researchers noted the dangers of falsely balanced news coverage. Kohler, the year published, and the page number are in parentheses after the citation. So those are two different ways you can do an in-text citation. You can put the Kohler 2016 in the narrative, followed by the page number, or you can put it after your paraphrased information with the author, comma, publication year, and then the page number. Notice that the period goes outside of the after the parentheses for both examples. Direct quotation of material. That is word for word quoted evidence from another source that is written inside your work. When quoting directly, always provide the author and the year and the page number of the quotation in the text citation in either a parenthetical citation, which means in parentheses after the quote, or the narrative format within the body of text. So you must include, whenever you're using direct quoted material, you must include the page number. So now it's no longer optional. Pagination. To indicate a single page number, use the abbreviation P. For example, page 312. To indicate multiple pages, use the abbreviation PP and separate the page range with an N dash. For example, 312 to 313. To indicate discontinuous pages, use a comma between the page numbers. For example, here we have 21 and 29. If there are no page numbers provided, you'll use the paragraph number. For example, here we have paragraph, para, period, 3 through 4, so that's paragraphs 3 through 4. If it is a lengthy source without page numbers, provide a heading section name. You can also combine the heading or section name in a combination with a paragraph number. For example, you can see here that people who are better at rhythmic memory skills tend to excel at language arts skills as well. There was no, so the author is DeAngelis. It was published in 2018, but because there were no page numbers, there was a heading for the section where you found that information. You found it in the musical festival section, and it was paragraph 4. So this example combines the section name and the paragraph location. How to cite sources using the 7th edition APA continued. Acknowledging and attributing, so this is narrative citations, acknowledging and attributing information, ideas or quotations borrowed for external sources before or in the middle of the acknowledged information. The author appears in the running text, and the date published appears in parentheses immediately after the author's name for a narrative citation. For example, Kohler 2016 noted the dangers of falsely balanced news coverage. In this paraphrased example, there is no page number, which means the writer either chose not to put the page number because it is paraphrased based on APA formatting, and or the university did not require a page number with paraphrased information. Parenthetical citation. Acknowledging and attributing information, ideas, or quotations borrowed from external sources, after or within the acknowledged information placed in parentheses. A parenthetical citation can appear within or at the end of a sentence. When the parenthetical citation is at the end of the sentence, put the period or other end punctuation after the closing punctuation. For example, researchers noted the dangers of falsely balanced news coverage, parentheses, author's last name, Kohler, comma, and then the year published, end parentheses, then that period that ends the sentence. For a blocked quote is a direct quotation with 40 or more words. Do not use quotation marks and double space it. Begin a new line and indent the entire quote 0.5. Do not add an additional indent for the first paragraph, but do indent 0.5 for subsequent paragraphs. End the direct quotation with a punctuation mark and then put the page number in parentheses. So the end of the punctuation mark goes before the page number this time. So only in blocked quotes. Here's an example of a blocked quotation. The signal phrase, the lead-in phrase, is in the paragraph above the block quote. Also notice the colon after the signal phrase before the block quote. So this is the colon here, and this is the signal phrase before, and it's in this paragraph before the blocked quote. The blocked quote is all of this that is 0.5 over. Notice there's no additional indentation, and here the period ends inside before the parentheses of the page number. When this example here of the blocked quote, when you're putting in a blocked quote, remember you don't do any additional indentation. A separate section titled References for Source listed or references for 2 or more sources. The list is, so now we're looking at the corresponding reference link entry. The list is in alphabetical reference at the end of the paper. Each reference list entry provides the author, date, title, and source of the reference cited in the paper and enables the reader to identify and retrieve the work. For references with no dates, you use N period D period in the reference section, and for in-text citations. So in an in-text citation, for in-text citation, paraphrased evidence with parenthetical citation, the citation should include the author's last name and publication year, in parentheses separated by a comma. For example, Achieve 3000 did not yield better results than iReady Reading. So here we have the parenthetical citation after the paraphrased information, and you have the author separated with a comma, and then you just have the date that it was published, and that's in parentheses. And again, you note that there's no page number here because in this example, either the writer didn't want to put it in, because if they wanted to, they can put the page number in, or they were not being told to by their professor or their teacher. If they are, then they must put in the page number. In-text citations. For in-text paraphrased evidence with narrative citations, the citation should include the author's last name and publication year. For two authors, do not use an ampersand, that little and sign. In the narrative, write the word "and" between the authors and list them in the same order as the source. Then put the publication year in parentheses. For three or more authors, only put the first author followed by et al. Et al. Is an abbreviation for the Latin phrase et alia, which means "and others." It is used in academic writing to refer to multiple authors, it says et al. Here, without listing all of their names. You only have to list all three if there are multiple sources with the same first author and the year is the same. The idea is that the narrative information needs to clearly direct the reader to the correct source from the reference list. An example, here are three examples of in-text paraphrase narrative citations written before the paraphrase information. In this era of artificial intelligence, I think teachers and professors will most likely require page or paragraph numbers to ensure students are doing the research. As an adjunct professor myself from Chaminade University, in my courses, I would require it. Page numbers. So in this example, because this is paraphrased and it's in the narrative, you see you have your lead-in, you have the the publication year in parentheses, a comma, and then you have the information that you paraphrased, followed by, in parentheses, the page number, because it's on multiple pages, it's PP, period, space, period, and it's pages 1 through 2, because it's continuous pages, end parentheses, and then that period for the end of that sentence. In our second example here, we have another lead-in. This one said according to, this one says in accordance with. And now we have two authors, Fisher and Smith. And again, in the narrative, you don't put an ampersand, you write out and Smith, 2023, and then you have your comma and paraphrased information. iReady Reading is a great tool. That is found on page 1. There you have that end punctuation mark. If you had two sentences, you'd still put a period inside here, but the second sentence would end out here, and so forth. Our third and final example here, we have according to Jones et al. That means there's three or more authors who wrote this source, and it was published in 2019, comma, iReady Reading is a great tool, and that was found on 2 discontinuous pages. Still, you put 2 P's, pages 1 and 3. That means it was not found on page 2. And again, that period is outside of that parentheses. So it was only in the block quote that we put the period over here, and we didn't put any quotes. So an in-text citation for directly quoted parenthetical citation after the quote, you'll still put the author's last name, the year of publication, and the page number is required. If it's one page, you put P. If it's one author, for example, Fisher, comma, 2023, page 3. If you have 2 or more pages with 2 authors, you would put PP, and then this is in-text citation in the parentheses. So now we're not putting it in the narrative. Now you would put that ampersand instead of the and. So Wise and Jones. And again, if you have discontinuous pages and you have 3 or more authors, then you would put Chun et al., 3 or more authors, notice the period and then the comma, the year published, comma, and because these are discontinuous pages, you have to put 2 P's because it's more than one page, period, and the discontinuous pages are 3 and 5, so it's not found on page 4. All right, so now we're looking at in-text directly quoted evidence with narrative citations before the quoted text. We have our signal phrase, our lead-in with the author's last name or names and publication year in parentheses. Then we put a comma if it is needed. Next, after the quoted evidence, we place the page number in parentheses. Again, we use P for one page, PP, with an N dash for more than one continuous page, and PP with a comma separating discontinuous pages. Here are 2 examples. In accordance with Obama 2008, yes, we can. So what I want you to notice in this is a direct quote. That's why it's in quotations. We have our lead-in or signal phrase. We have our author followed by the year in parentheses and a comma, space, and then our quote, yes, we can. Notice that the punctuation mark, the period, doesn't go inside the parentheses here as it would, inside the quotation mark as it would, It goes after the end parentheses and the page number. Here's another example. According to Smith et al., that means there's 3 or more authors, and this was published in 2020, comma, space, quote, Maine Coon cats are the most popular breed in America, end quote. There's no period here because the period goes after the page numbers, and this was found on 2 discontinuous pages. That means it didn't continue, on page 17 and again on page 19. All right, so now we have correspondence entry reference section. This begins on a new page. The reference, you'll title it. It'll be in heading number 1, bold, centered, and double spaced. You'll put reference if it's only one reference, references if it's more than one reference, and the sources will be in alphabetical order. You will not include, you'll ignore any articles, a, and, or the for the alphabetical. So you only put it in title if you don't have an author. Otherwise, it's in alphabetical order by author's last name. So you'd put it in order of author's last name unless you have to use the title. And then everything is 0.05 with a hanging indentation. So for all your references, the basic format is always the same. Author's name, last name, first initials, publication, your first initial, middle initial, publication date. For websites, you use the format year, month, day. And for articles and books, you use the format year. And then you put the title of the source. So we're going to continue with it. For books, report. So what do you italicize? For reports, italicize the report name. For books, italicize the title. For reports, italicize the report name and year. For periodicals, italicize the name of the periodical and the journal all the way up to the volume number, but not the series. For web pages, websites, italicize the web page. For audiovisual works, you italicize the name of the work, and for artwork, you italicize the title of the work and use sentence case capitalization only for the first word, proper nouns, and the first word after a colon. In the reference section, as for capitalization, do not capitalize the title as you would in the narrative. Instead, for all titles, use sentence case. This is really weird, okay? This is one thing that whenever I'm looking up a source, and I ask it to put it in APA format, many times this is where I have to go in and correct my reference section because they don't put it in this sentence capitalization for all titles. So here's an example of books. In this example, we have so this would be exactly how you italicize and capitalize. So we have Smith, you only put his last name, comma, and his initials, J, period, A, period, and then a space, in parentheses, the year that it was published, with a period after that, then a space, and then in italics, the title of the book. And the title is in sentence capitalization. Notice that you're not capitalizing art and citation as you would usually in a title. Instead, you're putting it in sentence capitalization format. It ends with a period, and then you put the publisher, which is publishing house. For reports, now in this case, we don't have the author's name, so we put the full name of the institute, National Institute of Health, period. You put the year in parentheses with a period after it, the year of publication, and then you have the publication's name. The title. So here's the title again. So it's always the title after the year. So the title is Annual Health Report. Notice it's in sentence capitalization, 2020. That's all part of the title. And then who was the publisher? That is in proper noun capitalization. So the only thing italicized in here was the title of the report. For books, the title of the book. As for how to capitalize titles, in both cases, sentence capitalization. Here's our last one, periodicals. In this one, we have an author again. We put our last name, Brown, comma, R for the first initial, period, space, then the year that it was published in parentheses with a period, a space. Now we have the title. And notice that this time, because it is a periodical, the title is not italicized. However, it is still in sentence capitalization. Journal of Environmental Studies is capitalized, as well as the first number here, which is the volume. It isn't until the parentheses with the series that we do not have an italics. So the italicized goes all the way up to this 45. I always find that fun to do because that little tip of how that you know when to italicize and not to italicize, because many of your sources will be from journals, obviously, is neat to know. And then notice for page number here, they didn't put PP. So in the reference section in the back, your last thing that you put into your paper is your reference section. You don't put the PP in that reference section list. All right, so let's continue with our reference section and let's look at these examples. Now we have a web page and website. So notice that we don't have an author, so there's no author here written. Instead, we have the full title of the organization, World Health Organization. In this example, I took away the date as if it didn't have one, and I put ND. It really was 2020, by the way. But I put ND so you could see what to do. If you did not have a date, you would put no date like that with a period after it. And now we have our title. And our title is Global Health Observatory Data. And notice that it, again, is in sentence capitalization where you don't capitalize anything that's not a proper noun. Or after the colon. If there was a colon, you would only capitalize the first word. And then if there was a colon, the first word. And then notice that there is a hyperlink here for the website. And that is acceptable in APA formatting to put that hyperlink. I did throughout my dissertation. Okay, so now we have audiovisual works. So in this case, we have our author, comma, and you have the director anyway. Then their first initial with a period, director placed in parentheses after that with a period, the year that it was produced, period, and then the title again is italicized. After the title, you put film, period, and then the production studio, which was Studio Films, period. And the last one, when you have an artwork, we know that Vincent van Gogh wrote Starry Night. So here we have Van Gogh is the full last name, comma. Vincent is abbreviated with his initial, V, period. And it was produced in 1889. So it's in parentheses here with a period. The title of it is Starry Night. Now in this case, because it's a proper noun, Starry Night is capitalized. And then painting in parentheses, period. And where did I get this source was from Museum of Modern Art. So here is a breakdown of what goes in for the following common sources. For a book, author's last name, first initials, title, book, publisher, and notice how it's punctuated here. For article in a journal, again, notice how what's put in here and how it is punctuated. I don't have the italics in here, just have what goes into it to each one of these and what order. So here's common examples of the website. Remember, you can put that hyperlink, a film, an online video. All right, and we looked at each one of those in detail. That's why I went quickly through it. So how to create a hanging indent. All right, so to create a hanging indent, always use a hanging indent for second and subsequent lines of each reference on your reference page. In Google, to create a hanging indent, first highlight all of your references. Then in the menu, open Format, choose Align and Indent, choose Indentation Options, select Special Indent drop-down menu, choosing Hanging, 0.05 should automatically appear. For more detailed guidelines and examples, it is recommended to consult the official APA Publication Manual 7th edition or the APA website. Always check for updates or changes in citation rules. A great source to use for writing is Purdue OWL. You can find that at http://owl.purdue.edu. Mahalo for joining me. Here is our reference. Lastly, here are some transitions to help you write. Have a great day.